أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
اللهم الدائمة وعلى أعدائه. So there is the hadith of Anwar Islam, which is very famous. Narrated from Sunni Shia, both the sources. The reference of this hadith is several. Mashariq al-Yaqeen, page 21. al-Bayan is another Tafseer, al-Bayan, volume 1, page 7. And also it's narrated in al-Isfar, 734. So these are the references of Sunnis and Shias about the famous hadith where Imam Ali had said, "Ana nuqtatun tahta al-ba'." And then there is a long discussion going on between Sunnis and Shias about the interpretation of this hadith and the objections that are coming from some sects of Islam against the hadith. Let me first mention another hadith where Imam Ali where he said, that's also narrated from the Sunni source, that he said, can you read it with the orange?
Yeah, sure.
إن كل ما في القرآن الفاتحة. وكل ما في الفاتحة في بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وكل ما فيه في الباء. وكل ما في الباء النقطة. وأنا نقطة تحت الباء. This is also a Sunni narration. We have so many hadiths in our sources as well, talking the same thing, maybe very slight variation of the words. This one is narrated in Volume 1, page 68. So, now in this hadith, Imam Ali Islam has said that in Kull Ma fil Quran, whatever is there in the Quran is available in Al-Fatiha, is in Fatiha, Surah Al-Hamd. وكل ما في الفاتحة, and whatever is in Fatiha is in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وكل ما فيه, and whatever is in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, fil ba, is in the ba, the letter ba of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وكل ما في الباء, and whatever is in ba, fil nuqta, is in the dot. There is a dot beneath the ba. That's the dot he's talking about. The dot under the letter ba. And then he says, وَأَنَا نُقْطَةٌ تَحْتَ الْبَاءِ, I am the dot under the ba. So this is a famous hadith, authentically narrated in our sources, and narrated from multiple sources. And so, should I erase this? some of the interpreters of Quran from different sects called it to be illogical argument. Some interpreters of the Holy Quran call it to be guru. These are their objections. Illogical because they say there's no way all that is in Quran can be encompassed in just a drop. Quran is full of knowledges and Mashariq. How is it possible that everything is inside the dot? This is their argument, so they call it illogical. And there are some who call it wudu, means raising the level of Ahlul Bayt more than what they deserve. It's making them similar to the attributes of Allah. So none of these two arguments are correct, and we disagree with both of them. It's neither illogical nor ghulu. This is something similar. This is something similar to the argument of is it possible to have the heavens and earth inside an egg? Can you encompass all the heavens and earth inside an egg? Well, actually that was the question that was posed by one of the people when he came to Imam Ali alayhi salam. Before I come to that argument, let me mention this hadith related to this. Somebody comes to Imam Rida alayhi salam and said that, is it possible that Allah can bring the whole universe, all the heavens and earth in an egg? Is it within the power of Allah? هل يقدر ربك أن يجعل السماوات والأرض وما بينهما في بيضة? Can your Lord, is your Lord empowered to place the heavens and earth in an egg? Imam Rida alayhi salam replies back to that question. He says, نعم وفي أصغر من البيضة. Yes, and in something smaller than an egg. That means Allah can encompass that in something which is even smaller than an egg. Then Imam alayhi salam said to him, وَقَدْ جَعَلَهَا. Allah definitely placed it في عينك, in your eyes. You have to talk to people according to their mental level. This is exactly what they deserve. Allah definitely placed it in your eyes. وَهِيَ أَقَلْ مِنَ الْبَيْضَةِ. And your eyes are smaller than an egg. It's true, you know. لأنك إذا فتحتها because when you open up the eyes, Allah has definitely placed it in your eye. وهي أقل من البيضة, and the eye is smaller than the egg. لأنك إذا فتحتها, because when you open the eye, عينت السماء والأرض. I'll write it here. عينت السماء والأرض. Because when you open the eye, you watch the heaven and earth. وما بينهما, and what's between them. What's between the two. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَأَعْمَاكَ عَنْهَا. And if Allah wished, لَأَعْمَاكَ, Allah would have made you blind from that. So this is just one example of how the Prophet and al-Bayan always used to talk to people according to their level of your audience. What do they deserve? How much they can digest? How much they can understand? And this guy definitely was a person of a medium level of understandings, not a high level of understanding. Because this reply of Imam Rida Islam so shows that he is not of a high level of understanding. He belongs to a medium level, a mutawassit level of understanding. So this is how he would understand. That's the way you have to talk to a person like this. So, and a similar hadith, can I erase this? Similar question was addressed to Imam Ali alayhi salam. هل يقدر ربك أن يدخل الدنيا في بيضة? There's no need to write down, but I'll just read it to you. No need to write down the question. So the person asked Imam Ali alayhi salam, is it possible for, is your Lord empowered to enter this world into an egg, min ghayri an tasqur dunya, without the world getting smaller, or takbur al-bayda, without the egg getting bigger? Imam Ali alayhi salam replies back to that person. So you find different replies given by Ahlul Bayt to people who are asking almost similar questions. Again, that depends on the level of understanding and ma'rifat of the person to whom you are talking. In Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, blessed and the high, لا ينسب إلى العجز. Allah cannot be related to inability. وَالَّذِي, that means He has the ability to do everything. You cannot attribute inability to Allah. He is able to do everything. وَالَّذِي سَأَلْتَنِي لَا يَكُونُ. But what you asked me is not going to happen. So here you see it's a different response. What you asked me, that means placing this dunya into an egg, that's not going to happen. That's not, this is not, this is not something which is, the thing itself is not a doable thing. It's not it's not a doable thing. So see, in this Islamic belief system, we learn that muhalat are of several types, impossibles. Are of several types. What are the types of impossibles? So we have al-muhal al-urfi, we have al-muhal al-addi, we have al-muhal al-aqli. An impossible which the urf, the people in the society consider to be impossible. And the impossible which is usually impossible, and that impossible which is logically impossible. So the example of what is logically impossible is like 2 plus 2 cannot be anything other than 4. This is logically impossible. If you want to make it 5, then it's not 2 and this is not 2. Your supposition is incorrect. As long as you are supposing the question the way it is, then it's not possible because that's against the logic. So here what needs to be understood by everyone is that when we say Inna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir, ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allah has the qudrat and strength. Allah has the strength over everything. So in the tafsir, my teacher was saying that when we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the strength and qudrat and strength over doing everything, al-muhal al-aqli is not a thing. That's not a thing. Something which is logically not possible to happen is not a thing. Something which is logically possible to happen but not doable for us, yes, that's because of inability of ours. It's impossible for us to do because we are unable to do it. inability cannot be attributed to Allah. So, and things which are, so if it's just because we are usually unable to do it, doesn't mean that Allah is also unable. Allah is able to do those of the things. But those of the things which are logically impossible, anything which is al-muhal al-aqli is not a shay, it's not a thing, it's not under the concept of shay and thing. It's not included, it cannot be included. And that's logically, as long as you keep the two as two, and keep the two as two, and you are not changing this question, this equation, there is no way you can make it 5 or 3 or anything else, because otherwise your supposition is incorrect. So this is called muhal al-aqli, which is not a thing. Like the communists used to say, can Allah create another creator similar to him? Or a stone equal to him, his own size? This is purely wrong and muhal al-aqli, logically impossible questions. Because first of all, Allah doesn't have a size. He is limitless. When you say a stone equal to his size, this question itself is impossible, logically impossible, because Allah Himself has no size. So anything which falls under the category of shay is doable for Allah, and anything which is not included in the concept of shay, thing, is not logically possible. So that's not called inability. That means your question itself, the point that you are making is not a valid point. So this is about one aspect of this discussion that we are talking about, how the ma'arif of Quran can be engulfed in the dot and ba of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What needs to be understood in this discussion, and before I go to that point, let me mention one more thing. Another objection done by some scholars is that, of some sects of Islam, is that what Imam Ali said is not acceptable, because in those days when Quran was being revealed, Quran was written in al-Khatt al-Kufi, in the Kufic writings and style of writing, way of writing. So in the Kufic style of writing, there was no dot. And you can see it in the old texts, they don't have dots. But yes, they didn't have dots, that's true. This is correct. Dots were not there in that style of writing. But this is another objection that some sects of scholars or some sects of Islam have done against the hadith of Imam Ali salam. But the Kufi's text and style didn't have dots, that's true, but what these scholars are forgetting is that even in the Kufi style of writing, there were signs present in the text that determined whether the alphabet has a dot over it or under it. Through those signs we can determine, and those signs are leading you towards the dot, and the same dot which Imam Ali is talking about, there is a sign available which leads you towards the dot, so your objection is not valid and doesn't carry any value. If there was no way, then how in the world can a person in Arabic can determine whether it is khar or har or ja? 3 different words with 3 different meanings, right? So when we say in the Holy Quran, kharra Musa sa'iqan, Prophet Musa fell down unconscious. That's the ayat of Quran. Kharra Musa sa'iqan. Prophet Musa fell down unconscious. How in the world can you determine that this is the letter kha and you read it kharra instead of reading it as har without a dot, or jar, which means pulling something? This is neither pulling, these are neither the heat issue, it's about falling down unconscious. So there were signs available in the Kufi style of writing that determined whether the alphabet has a dot over or under it, and through those signs everyone used to determine that, and that sign is leading you towards the dot, and the same dot which is guided through those signs is the one that Imam Ali is talking about in his hadith. So this objection is invalid. So this is about the last objection. Now let me go back to the point I was mentioning in the beginning. Can I erase this?
Before you erase Mawlana, is it ana nuqtatun or ana an-nuqtatun?
There are multiple narrations. This is nuqtatun. Al-nuqtatu is also narrated, but that was a different narration. There are so many narrations where it's narrated in multiple ways.
So the alphabet always had all the dots, but they just didn't write it when they're writing text.
Sorry, what?
The letters always had dots, or they added dots later after
They added the dots later. Oh, clearly written dots were added later.
I mean in the alphabet, not in the way they write things, not in the way they write books or whatever. You know what I mean? Like the original letters, if they say this is the letter ha or kha, how did they differentiate the letter? If they-
Well, in old days, they were the style which was utilized in those days was the same. In those days was the Kufi style of writing, which did not have the dots. Now, obviously, the scholars were very those who knew to write were very, very few individuals in the Arab community in those days. Extremely few people who knew to write. So the writers of the language are very counted few, and you can actually, if you can count those few people in the history, we can gather the names as well, how many people used to write it. So there are very few people. So it was not a tradition usually for a widespread community to write down, but those writings that were written obviously were without dots, because dots were not written in those days.
Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam has a khutbah without not. So that means they had the concept of not.
Definitely, they had the concept of thought. Even when they were not, that's what we are replying back to the objection, that even if the Al-Khattul Kufi, the Kufi style of writing never had dots, but in the writing of the text, there were always signs that indicate towards the qualified reader that this letter is a ha. So he is not going to read it as ha or jeen because of those alamat and signs available in the text that lead the reader to read it correctly. And those alamat are leading towards the dot, which is part of the language, part of the Arabic grammar. It's just that the Kufi style is not writing it, but the writing the sign that leads to it. But it's part of the language, and everyone knows it's part of it. That's how they speak it with the dot. They don't speak it without the dot. So now, what needs to be understood, our position on this. Our position on this hadith. This is a very great hadith of Imam Ali Islam. And inshallah in the next class I will talk of something else on this hadith, something further on this hadith inshallah. So this is one of those unique hadiths which is an eye-opener for people to understand and to realize the highness of the Prophet and Ahlul Imam Ali Salam's highness. That's one of the reasons you cannot talk to everyone. You cannot talk everything to everyone. Simply they won't understand. And they will deny it, or denounce it, or start even condemning you, or start opposing it. That's the sign of ignorance. So, Imam Ali Rasul has said, An-nasu a'da'u ma jahilu. People are enemies of what they do not know. This is so true. An-nasu a'da'u ma jahilu. People are enemies of what they do not know. That's the way people are. When they don't know something, they start opposing it. Instead of learning, why are you opposing it? There's a difference between learning and opposing, but that's how people do. That's Minhajul Balagha. People are enemies of what they don't know. When you don't know, they start opposing it. But this is the pattern of behavior people have because of their ignorance. This sign of a jahil person. If you oppose something just because you don't know it, don't understand it, this is the perfect sign of a jahil person. So what people were supposed to do is to turn to the source, which is the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt al-Salam, to ask the meanings of that. Quran, our side, our scholars say, and I will explain in next class as well some other things, but our scholars say that we have the Tanzeel of Quran, Tanzeel al-Quran, and we have the Ta'wil al-Quran, right? Two very, very important terminologies, that's why I'm writing in Arabic. So these are terminologies that we must understand and learn, the terms. Tanzeel al-Quran and Ta'wil al-Quran. Tanzeel means how Quran is revealed. Which means the apparent face and apparent meaning. You pick up the Holy Quran from a bookshelf, you open it and you see the text in the Quran. That's the apparent face of the Holy Quran, apparent text, so which has the Arabic words written, and obviously the word has a meaning. That's the apparent face of Quran, that's the apparent meaning of Quran. This is called Tanzeel because that's how it was revealed on the Prophet. But is the meaning that you understand from the text the same meaning which Allah intended? Do you know that? That this is the intention of Allah? In order to understand the hidden meanings, this is where Ta'wil al-Quran means the hidden meanings. Hidden means it's not apparent. It's not zahir, it's batin. Zahir, even a kafir can understand who has a degree in the Arabic language from some university. Obviously he studied it, so he can also understand the apparent meaning. Tanzeel al-Quran is accessible to a Muslim and a kafir. That's the apparent meaning. But is that enough for the guidance? If that was enough for the guidance of humankind, then every single human who has studied Quran should be a believer. Every single human should be end up becoming a believer, and they could go to paradise. Because you get the guidance by simply understanding the apparent meaning. You can understand when you have Arabic language skills, you can understand it. When you understand it, you should be guided. Is that the case? No. So Tanzeel al-Quran is not sufficient. Right? So Ta'wil al-Quran is only with the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. The hidden meanings of Quran are only with the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. So we have to turn to the Ahlul Bayt to tell us the hidden meanings. Obviously the Zahir of Quran is also for our guidance, and it's a guide for us, correct. But without the explanation from Ahlul Bayt and the guidance from Ahlul Bayt, the Zahir of Quran is not going to be sufficient for you. And this is what I'm trying to come to the hadith for Imam. This verse, which is the batin. Batin means the hidden meaning of Quran. So now let's come to what Imam Ali says. In ذلك القرآن فاستنطقوه. ذلك القرآن فاستنطقوه. That's the Quran. So ask the Quran to speak. Ask the Quran to speak for you. Can the Quran speak for you? No, Quran is a book. It's not going to speak for you. That's the Quran. Ask the Quran to speak. And then Imam Ali said, this is how they are trying to guide the people to understand the basic thing that you cannot be guided without the al-Bayan. Just taking the Quran is a... There are so many people say, no, Mawlana, don't talk about any hadith. Just mention any ayat of Quran to me. I said, I fundamentally disagree with your question. Because Quran itself is not sufficient. If it was sufficient, there is no way Prophet had said in Sahih Muslim that inni tarikun fikum mustaqalan kitab Allah wa itrati. Did Prophet leave behind two things or he left behind only one thing? Why are you asking Quran only? Why? It's fundamentally un-Islamic to rely on Quran only, because simply you can never get the true guidance only from Quran by ignoring Ahlul Bayt and you're opposing the Sunnah of the Prophet. But this is exactly what some people are doing. This is the reason why they are misguided. Why they are misguided? Those people who turn away from Ahlul Bayt are misguided because they turned away from the interpreters of Quran. Imam Ali says, ذَلِكَ الْقُرْآنِ, that's the Quran. فَاسْتَنْتِقُوهُ, go and ask the Quran to speak. Is the Quran going to speak for you? And then he says himself, وَلَنْ يَنْتِقْ, and the Quran is never going to speak. وَلَنْ يَنْتِقْ, is never going to speak. This word lan in Arabic, lam and noon, is for infinity. And nafyu ta'bidi, how we say in the grammar, infinity, is never ever going to speak. Never ever going to speak. Okay? This is the Quran, ask the Quran to speak for you. It is never going to speak. And then, after that, he says, وَلَكِنْ أُخْبِرَكُمْ عَنْهُ, but I am going to inform you about the Quran. وَأُخْبِرَكُمْ عَنْهُ. I am going to inform you about the Quran. أَلَا إِنَّ فِيهِ عِلْمُ إِنَّ فِيهِ عِلْمًا ألا إن فيه علما ما يأتي علم ما يأتي, definitely in it, that means in Quran, is the knowledge of what is going to come. وَالْحَدِيثُ عَنِ الْمَاضِي, and the conversation about the past. وَالْحَدِيثُ عَنِ الْمَاضِي, conversation about the past. وَالدَّوَاءُ دَائِكُمْ, and the cure of your sickness. A lot of people are spiritually sick. وَالدَّوَاءُ دَائِكُمْ, دَوَاءُ دَائِكُمْ, cure for your sickness. وَالنَّظْمُ مَا بَيْنَكُمْ, So this is narrated in Nahul Balagha for sermon 157. So the Tanzeel of Quran is in the excess of every Tom, Dick and Harry in the planet. Tanzeel is not sufficient for our guidance, otherwise Prophet would not leave behind two things. He would just leave behind Quran. Right? So we need to have access to the interpretation. Even for the Tanzeel we require interpretation. Forget about the hidden meanings. Definitely we need al-Bayan to tell us the hidden meanings that Allah has intended behind the apparent meanings. But even for the apparent meanings, we cannot find the apparent meanings and understand the apparent meanings correctly and properly without the tafsir and interpretation coming from those who were addressed in the Holy Quran. So we say, إِنَّمَا يَعْرِفُ الْقُرْآنَ مَنْ كُتِبَ بِهِ. Quran is only known by those people who are addressed by Allah in the Quran. Allah sent the Quran on whom? On whom? On the Prophet's soul. So it's only the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt who are from the same Noor who has the real understanding and ma'rifat of Quran. Even for the Zahir, not only for the Batin, but even for the Zahir. إِنَّمَا يَعْرِفُ الْقُرْآنَ مَنْ كتب به. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.
اللهم صل على